going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Well, welcome if it's your first time here. Yesterday I released my new t-shirt design, Never Forget Operation Northwoods. And I immediately started getting emails from people asking what Operation Northwoods actually was. And I was totally taken back and surprised at how many people who watched my videos here didn't have any idea what Operation Northwoods was. And others who knew what it was sent emails, a couple, asking what this that happened in 1962 have to do with what's going on today. So I decided to make a quick video here today to talk about both topics. What Operation Northwoods was and how it pertains to us today and how it will in the future. But first, let's take a look at Wikipedia and see what Operation Northwoods actually was. It was found in declassified documents. Operation Northwoods from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation against American citizens that originated within the U.S. Department of Defense of the United States government in 1962. The proposals called for CIA operatives to both stage and actually commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets, blaming them on the Cuban government and using it to justify a war against Cuba. The possibilities detailed in the document included the remote control of civilian aircraft, which would be secretly repainted as U.S. Air Force planes, the possible assassination of Cuban immigrants, sinking boats of Cuban refugees on the high seas, blowing up a U.S. ship, and orchestrating terrorism in U.S. cities. The operation proposed creating public support for a war against Cuba by blaming it for terrorist acts that would actually be perpetrated by the U.S. government. To this end, Operation Northwoods proposals recommended hijackings and bombings. Let's read that one more time. It sounds very, very familiar, doesn't it, guys? The operation proposed creating public support for war against Cuba by blaming it for terrorist acts that would actually be perpetrated by the U.S. government. To this end, Operation Northwoods proposals recommended hijackings and bombings. Several other proposals were included within Operation Northwoods, including real or simulated actions against various U.S. military and civilian targets. The operation recommended developing a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington, which involved the bombing of civilian targets themselves, which was to be blamed on the irresponsible Cuban government to paint a false image of Fidel Castro and misinform the American public. Physical documentation on Operation Northwoods became declassified through the John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992. This act declassified a total of 4 million documents, including Operation Northwoods, and was made available through the National Archives in College Park, Maryland. However, public knowledge of Operation Northwoods did not come until 2001 with the release of the book by author James Banford titled Body of Secrets. So essentially, it was a plan by the United States government because they wanted to go to war and take Cuba. They wanted to invade Cuba and take Cuba and occupy Cuba. But they needed the support of the American people. And Cuba wasn't actually attacking the United States, wasn't actually doing any type of terrorist acts whatsoever in the United States. But they knew that if they could make it look like that was the case, that the American people would be behind the invasion of Cuba, because Cuba is right there off the coast of Florida. I think it's like 80 miles off the coast of Florida. And the American people would get stirred up, worked up, and propagandized with evidence brought forth by the United States government, investigators, and given to us through the mainstream media over and over and over again. And the American people will be like, yes, we've got to do this. We've got to invade Cuba. That was the whole plan, to gain support. And they were willing to do actual terrorist attacks inside the United States, including remote-controlled aircraft. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it, guys? The things that the United States government does to justify war, a lot of people wouldn't believe. False flags have been used throughout history, and the United States government isn't no exception we see right here. This wasn't carried out. However, it was brought forth, it was worked up as an active plan, and they brought it to Kennedy President John F. Kennedy in 1962, and he rejected it. But you look at how things are run now, and we have different people in there now that are even more corrupt than they was back then. So, you look at like the Vietnam War, we had the Gulf of Tonkin. Most wars are started through false flag events. Countries want war, so they will stage events, they will stage terrorism, they will stage attacks on American troops, and then blame it with proof through the mainstream media on someone else. And then the American people gets all stirred up, and the same thing in other nations too, but here in the United States, what I'm talking about right now. The people get worked up, the people demand action. I mean, the people's actually asking for war when it's all false. It's a false flag event carried out by our own government to make us think one way. Like I said in the video here a couple of days ago, it comes from a politician, it comes from the federal government, if it comes from the mainstream media, you better look at it as being a lie, because it probably is. Unless it's proven 100% proof, and even then, you can't really believe what you see because they can make proof. I was talking to my mom the other day, and we were talking about Trump. We were talking about they're always going after Trump all the time and seem to be trying to put Trump in prison. And like I told her, in my opinion, if they actually wanted Donald Trump in prison, he would be in prison. They can plant evidence. If they can do this, they're not going to hesitate to put Donald Trump in prison with either real evidence or false evidence. They can make it happen if that's what they wanted to do. So apparently he's more useful not being in prison, or he's part of the plan, part of the process. And that's the simple facts of the matter, in my opinion. If they actually wanted him in prison, if the deep state and the globalists wanted Donald Trump to be in prison, he would be in prison, because they would get the evidence to put him in prison behind bars permanently. But apparently he's more useful being out of prison, or he's all part of the plan, or maybe both. But this shows the extent that they will go to get war started, to keep funding the military-industrial complex, to keep invading, to keep conquering different locations. You hear all kinds of stuff on the news, the nightly news, the mainstream media, and it's all designed to make you think one thing, to lead us all one way, to lead us all to one conclusion. That's like, we got to invade Iraq because of Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. And after it was all over with, George Bush Jr., he was actually bragging about the fact that there wasn't any weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. He was like, are they over here? Are they over here? Nope, not over there. Thought it was funny. If you look at this whole Operation Northwoods, it definitely reminds us of something that happened about 20-something years ago. Doesn't it? You think about it. But this is very pertinent to what goes on today, what's going on right now, what will happen tomorrow. When you see things being reported, when you see calls for war, when you see attacks, they could be real, but most likely they're probably not. They might be real attacks, but they might not be carried out by who they're saying carried it out. Maybe it was their own government that carried it out. If there's a dirty bomb that goes off, say in Ukraine, and they're going to say it's Russia. Think about it. Is it really Russia? It could be. Could not be. Well, how do we know? We do know they're trying to push us into war every way they can. There's no backing up. There's no peace talks. It's just go, 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 go to try to push Russia back as far as they can push Russia back because of the deep state. The people who are actually running this operation here may not the same people at the same departments anyways. Pushing because they want this war with Russia. The globalists want this war with Russia. The deep state wants this war with Russia. And they don't care, as shown here, even back in '62, they don't care about the deaths of American people, deaths of American servicemen, the destruction of property, businesses, whatever. They don't care as long as it meets their end. And that's why it's definitely very pertinent to Never forget Operation Northwoods. Anytime you hear this type things being broadcast over and over again in the media, think of Operation Northwoods. Never forget, because it's extremely important, because it lays the plan out of how things are actually ran here in the U.S., how the deep state actually operates, how they use actual events to manipulate the American people to supporting war and whatever they want you to support at the time. And a lot of people think a false flag means that it was false, that nothing ever really happened. However, a false flag doesn't mean that at all. False flag can definitely have death, destruction, carnage, whatever. It can have lots of thousands of people dead. It can still be a false flag. A false flag simply means something happens that's carried out by this group over here because they actually want to blame this group over here to gain support from the people over here. That's what a false flag is someone does it, blame someone else to meet their own objectives. Keep that in mind, guys. Never forget Operation Northwoods. If you thought the video was useful, thought it was informative, give it a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and the Creekmore out here, and I'll see you all in the next video, hopefully.